I just got to go hands-on with the first ever preview for Pokemon Legends ZA. The demo was split up into two segments. One was focused on battling, and the other was focused on a boss fight in Mega Evolutions. Let's break it down. So let's start with the first segment that focused on battling. If you've been following Pokemon Legends ZA, you'll know that at night in Lumiose City, there's a tournament that happens, and that's where I was kind of thrown into. I got to do 3 battles, technically 4, although one I was way under-leveled for and got my ass kicked. But battling is very different. Now, looking back at Pokemon Legends Arceus, I feel like that game did a lot with Pokemon's catching mechanics. It added a lot of different ideas, different strategies to the mix, but battling kind of remained the same. The only caveat was during boss battles, where you had a little more freedom of movement and the whole battle felt more dynamic. Now, as some of you might know, Pokemon Legends ZA does not have a turn-based battle system. This is a first for the mainline series of Pokemon games. I know technically Legends isn't mainline, but whatever. Now, like a traditional Pokemon game, each Pokemon can have 4 moves that I imagine you can swap out as that Pokemon levels up, but each move is on a cooldown, meaning that once you're in a battle, you can use whatever moves you want regardless of what your opponent is doing. And each move has its own cooldown, so you can start a battle, start with something like Tail Whip or Growl in order to lower the opposing Pokemon's stats, and then follow up with a physical attack, which, you know, could do more damage, or you could just weaken the Pokemon you're fighting. It is an interesting change to the formula. I've been playing Pokemon for a very, very long time, and they've never done something like this in a mainline series. And I think it's pretty interesting. It still feels very true to Pokemon's combat, like there are different weaknesses and resistances, but it kind of adds a spin on it that really forces you to think on the fly. You know, in older Pokemon games, you can kind of sit there, you can menu for a bit, you can theory craft what you want to do next. You're not really given that opportunity in Pokemon Legends ZA. It is a very fast-paced version of this combat system. Like I said, I only really got to see 3 battles, so it's really hard to see how it develops and where it goes from here, and it seemed very early. All my Pokemon were like level 5, 6, 7, or whatever. That said, I am super curious. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love the traditional style of Pokemon battles. I play competitive when I can. It is my favorite thing about Pokemon. However, with the Legends series, I like that they're kind of taking this opportunity to experiment and kind of flip some traditions on its head. And it really seems like this is their opportunity to do that with battling. That said, there are some things returning that I imagine will make some fans happy. Early on in the demo, I came across a trainer who gave me a citrus berry, and you know what they told me to do? They told me to give that to a Pokemon to hold. Now, if you remember, Pokemon Legends Arceus did not have held items, but it seems like they have added it for Pokemon Legends ZA. It really feels like Pokemon Legends ZA is gonna do what Pokemon Legends Arceus did for catching, but for battling. I don't know if that made sense, but I think you follow. Pokemon Legends Arceus did some really interesting things with the catching mechanic. You had to be more involved in order to catch a Pokemon. It wasn't menuing throwing a Pokemon ball. You had to worry about positioning, aim, these other things. It kind of feels like Pokemon Legends ZA is trying to do that with its combat, and I'm here for it. Like I said, it seems interesting. I have no idea how far it develops. I have no idea how good it is, you know, 20 hours in, 30 hours in, 40 hours in. But so far, I'm really, really curious to see more. Now, outside of combat, there's also a few things they've introduced as well. The big one being stealth. So stealth was in Pokemon Legends Arceus as well when it came to catching Pokemon, but not for battling. With Pokemon Legends ZA, you can sneak up behind a trainer with their back turned, you can target their Pokemon that's out, and you can just fire off an attack. It does damage right away, it gives you an advantage, and all your cooldowns reset regardless of what move you used. So if you're able to sneak up behind a trainer and do this, you'll have a nice little advantage in battle. This part of the demo lasts about 10 minutes, and at the very end I was able to go into this little hotel, which I was told kind of acts as the player and their friend's base. Sounds like you return here quite often to talk to different characters. Didn't really say what else you could do in there, but it sounds like it's somewhat important to the story. But inside there is a character fans might remember called Az or AZ. I actually don't know the pronunciation. Google said it's either one. But fans will remember him from the game, and one thing that took me off guard is he is very tall. In one scene, he's standing next to a Lucario, and he's like 3 times the size of Lucario. It's kind of creepy, if I'm being honest. And that brings us to the second part of the demo. This part focused on Mega Evolutions and a boss battle. At the start of this segment, you're following Zygarde 10%. It's the dog form, I think, as it's running through Lumiose, and you need to follow it. Once you catch up to it, you are thrown into a battle with a Mega Evolved Absol that changed on its own. You get to use a Mega Evolved Lucario to stop it. However, Mega Evolutions work way differently than they did in previous games. It's not just tapping a button. Instead, you need to collect orbs on the battlefield that you can get by attacking the opposing Pokemon to fill a meter. Once that meter is full, you activate your Mega Evolution and your Pokemon is Mega Evolved for a short amount of time. However, there is a timer to this. It seems pretty slow, but in order to prevent the timer from dropping, you want to collect more of those orbs. If it does drop all the way, it bounces out of its Mega form and you need to collect orbs again and set it again. I actually really like this. It sounds kind of gimmicky. Lots of games have done similar things, but I really liked that these orbs forced me as the player to kind of jump into the fight and start collecting orbs, even if it was dangerous, in order to activate Mega Evolution. If you remember Pokemon Legends Arceus, these boss battles, you were also able to like run around the battle. You had to dodge a lot of AoE attacks. It's pretty similar here. One thing I did notice during this fight that I thought was pretty cool and kind of made me rethink Pokemon a little was Lucario had a move called Aura Sphere, and because positioning is more important, the Absol I was fighting just kind of walked out of the way. I told Lucario to use it, Lucario charged it up, and the Absol just kind of casually sidestepped it, and it missed. Another move that Lucario had was Bullet Punch, which has priority. It's known for being really fast, and sure enough, when I press it, Lucario was very quick. That move came out right away, punched the Pokemon, but Aura Sphere had to charge up a little. But yeah, I was able to beat the boss. It wasn't super challenging. There was a moment where it was looking kind of close, but once I kind of came to grips with the mechanics, I was able to pull ahead, take out the Absol, and then at the end, you automatically get to keep this Absol. So those are both segments of the demo. However, I do want to talk about the performance and visuals a little bit, because as of late, this has been pretty controversial when it comes to Pokemon games. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet infamously didn't run super well at launch, and to be honest, they didn't run super well until they finally got that Switch update a few months ago. Happy to say that I played this on a Switch 2 and it seemed to run great. It seemed like a very solid 60 frames a second from what I could tell. Lumiose City, I didn't really get to explore. I know that's probably something a lot of people want to know about. The demo I played was pretty railroaded. I had to go a very specific path. I'm really curious to see what that city is like on a grander scale. There was a moment where I was able to look at the map, zoom out. It seems like a pretty good sized map. It seems much denser than something like Pokemon Legends Arceus. That had more maps, but they were very spread out. That said, I would say based on what I saw of the city, it looked a little bland. It's not gonna blow you away, but to be honest, I'm really excited to see Lumiose City in full 3D. I think it could be pretty cool, even if graphically it's not really gonna blow anyone's socks off. Anyway, those are my first impressions on Pokemon Legends ZA. We're gonna cover this game more coming up, so make sure to stay tuned to GameSpot, and we'll see you next time.